I am 34 male learned the hard way that family doesn't always mean support. 3 years ago, I had emergency surgery for a ruptured appendix. My wife was out of town for work, and we had a 2-year-old son. I had no one else to turn to, so I called my parents, thinking they'd drop everything to help. They didn't. Instead, they told me they already had plans, a cruise with my sister and her family. My mom actually said, "We've been looking forward to this for months. You'll figure something out." I was in a hospital bed, barely able to move, and my own parents were telling me they couldn't watch their grandson because they wanted to sip margaritas on a boat. Thankfully, a close friend stepped up, took care of my son, and made sure I had everything I needed when I got discharged. My recovery was rough, and the betrayal hit deep. I didn't blow up on my parents. I just stopped reaching out. They noticed, but assumed I was just busy with life. Then, 3 years later, karma came knocking. My sister, the one they chose over me, abandoned her kids. Literally. One day, she just packed up and left them with my parents, saying she needed a break. No warning, no plan, just gone. Suddenly, my parents were full-time guardians to a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old. They weren't ready for it. They weren't willing for it. And after 2 weeks, they called me. Not to apologize. Not to acknowledge what they did to me. They called to ask for help. I let their calls go to voicemail. Then another. And another. Finally, my mom left a message, practically in tears. "Please, we can't do this alone. We need you to take them, just for a little while." A little while? Like how I needed them for a little while when I was in the hospital. I called her back, keeping my voice steady. "You want me to take in the kids? Why? You didn't seem to think childcare was a priority when I needed help." She hesitated. "That was different." "How?" She sighed. "We thought you'd figure something out. But this is long-term. We're exhausted." Now was a real problem because it directly affected them. I could have just said no and left it at that. But I had a better idea. "All right," I said. "I'll take them." She burst into relieved sobs. Even my father, who rarely showed emotion, sounded grateful. "We knew we could count on you," he said. Oh, they could count on me, all right. That weekend, I showed up at their house. The kids were confused, but happy to see me. I hugged them and reassured them that everything would be okay. Then I turned to my parents. "I need the paperwork." They blinked. "What paperwork?" my mom asked. "Legal guardianship. If I'm taking them, I need full custody. I won't be your backup plan whenever it gets hard. I want it in writing." Their faces went pale. My father clenched his jaw. "That's not what we meant," he said. "We just need help. You can't seriously be suggesting we give up custody." I shrugged. "You weren't ready to raise them. You asked me to step in. This is how I do it." Cue the weeks of arguing. My mom cried. My dad tried guilt-tripping me, and they both threw around keeping the family together like it meant something. But I learned my lesson. Family, to them, only mattered when they needed something. When manipulation didn't work, they got desperate. My dad even tried bribing me. "We'll help you financially, just don't make this legal. Let's keep things informal." I laughed. "Oh, so now you want to help?" Where was this energy when I was in a hospital bed, wondering who would take care of my son? That shut him up fast. But the absolute lowest point? My mom took the kid from school without telling me before my custody was finalized. She actually had the nerve to say, they were crying. They missed their home. They asked for us. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I just pulled out my phone, showed her the paperwork I had already started with my lawyer, and said, "Try this again, and I'll file for an emergency court order. You will lose all visitation rights." Her face fell. My father, standing behind her, looked like he wanted to explode. "You wouldn't dare." I stepped closer. "Try me." That was the last time they pulled any stunts. A few months later, custody was legally mine. My sister? Still MIA. I heard she was in another state, living with some guy. She never once reached out for her kids. And my parents? Oh, they felt the consequences of their actions. See, I wasn't just cutting them off from my sister's kids. I cut them off completely. No visits, no holidays, no birthdays with my son. They lost everything. One day my mom called, sobbing. "We never thought you'd actually do this. We thought we were family." I let her sit in the silence before I answered. So did I. And then I hung up. Best decision I ever made. Family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up when it matters. Oh, and if you enjoyed this story, hit that subscribe button. Because trust me, there's plenty more where this came from.